Welcome back to Gibbo MMA, and we are previewing UFC Shanghai. And we're going to get into some other stuff as well that's been happening around the UFC. We've got fight announcements, ranking updates, and more. But to kick things off, UFC Shanghai, we've got the main event, Johnny Walker, who was on a two-fight losing streak, but he gets catapulted just like the way UFC does things that don't make sense, into a main event after back-to-back losses against the countryman from China, Mingyang Zhang. And honestly, I think everyone else would agree the co-main between Brian Ortega and Aljamain Sterling should be the main event, but because we're in Shanghai, China, we'll just push the guy who's from there in Zhang. So I understand why they're the main event, but I think it's a little bit disrespectful to Ortega and Sterling, who's a former bantamweight champ, well-tested, proven fighter in Sterling, and you're almost pushing, trying to suffocate Sterling and what a great fighter he is and his accomplishments by putting them in the co-main. And it's a 5-round co-main event. Surely someone gets a title shot from this. We'll get into that controversy of they're not even getting paid extra for the 5-round bout. So yeah, but previewing this fight, a lot of road to UFC fighters on this card who have then gone on to only have a couple of fights. So I'm just going to focus on sort of the fights I think are really important and the ones I'm really keen on. But yeah, the main event, we kind of know what this is. This is set up for Johnny Walker to be knocked out in front of the world in China, Shanghai. Again, I get why it's the main event, trying to push Zhang. He's ranked, he's only had a few fights in the UFC. He's ranked 14 and Johnny Walker 13. Meanwhile, you got a featherweight bout with Ortega and Sterling, who are ranked Sterling 7, Ortega 5. But yeah, this is very much set up for Zhang to climb the ranks of the light heavyweight division. And I understand why. And they're also why they want to get into the big market in China. There's like 1.4 billion people in China. So if they can just capture 1% of that market, which is 14 million people, 14 million, if they can just get 1% of the Chinese market, UFC are laughing. They got the UFC PI there. Aljamain Sterling was saying it's even bigger and better than the one in Vegas. So they're very much wanting to get a hold of this market in China. Because yeah, there's a lot of people, huge, as we all know, China exports a lot of things, imports, but the drop shipping capital of the world. But if we're just looking at the odds here, I'm just getting them up. Like, there's going to be I'd say some big discrepancies here. $1.28 for Zhang. Johnny Walker, almost a 4-to-1 odds on underdog. But it's a puncher's chance. Johnny Walker, it's either get hit or fucking land the shot of his own. He's had a weird streak. He fought Magomed Ankalaev, who is now the champ, Johnny Walker. Did the no contest. That was a weird one. The ref's asking him, "Where are you?" And he's like, "I'm in the desert," and then called it. But I think we're going to see a cartoonish knockout of Johnny Walker again, very comical. He's coming off, the loss to Magomed and then the loss to Volkan Oezdemir. So yeah, he's been finished pretty viciously in his last few fights. And that's why you can see a change in sort of my excitement attitude towards this fight is like, we kind of know what we're going to get. He has a puncher's chance. Like Zhang, he is, he has been finished, but he's on a crazy tear right now. He's on a 12-fight win streak. He's fixed up a lot of the errors he's made in his earlier career and really developing now. He's only gone the distance once out of his 25 fights, so this is definitely ending in a finish. He has 19 first-round finishes, so, Johnny Walker can go the distance, like he did it with Thiago Santos a few years ago, but as far as path to victories, Zhang can finish him anywhere on the ground by a sub or with the brutal knockout. Let's dive into a little bit more with Zhang. He's 19-6. A lot of those losses were earlier in his career. He's 27 years old, so I see why UFC have put this as the main event because he's from China, but we need more big contenders at the light heavyweight division. And so it's a perfect push. It's a fight night. He's 3-0 in the UFC, Zhang. His last one was against Anthony Smith in his retirement fight. It was a little bit sad, to be honest. Like, it was just a lamb thrown to the wolves in that one. Wasn't competitive at all. He's got 3 performances in the row, so he's got, 150K in bonuses in his career so far. And I think, he's a fun light heavyweight. He's coming in there to strike and put on a show and get a vicious knockout, and he's willing to take shots of his own, as you saw in the Brenson Ribeiro fights. And that's what I do like about this matchup, is we're going to get like an explosion in there. And it's most likely going to be Johnny Walker on the bad side of that. And that's really all there is to break down about this main event. Like, it's really just who's going to knock the person out first. Walker, he came into the UFC real hot and we're like, oh shit, because he's super athletic. I wonder if he's going to go into the grappling because his half brother Volta Walker is on like a 2-3 in a row tear of heel hooks in the heavyweight division. I'm wondering if he's like, I need to change it up. I need to get these guys to the ground and try heel hook of my own. But he's switched. He was coming from Conor McGregor's camp, SBG, and I think he switched it up now to another one. But yeah, he dies well, so I think that's why he's been put on this main event. He dies very well. Always a highlight reel, whether he wins or loses. I like the guy. He's very entertaining, and I think the fans, this is for the fans, I guess. And that's why he is in this main event, despite being on a 2-fight losing streak, is because that's what is good about MMA. Is like, even if you lose, like, people will still cheer and pay attention and appreciate that. Like, you're putting your life on the line, and whether you lose or win, you've entertained us. My light I didn't charge it, so it's flickering a bit. We'll see how long it lasts. But let's have a look at the landscape of Shanghai, where this is taking place in China. So Shanghai, third biggest city in the world as far as population of 28 million. So that's including sort of the outer area of Shanghai. I think if you really go in the city, it's like 14 or something. But yeah, 28 million, third biggest population city in the world. If you can guess the top 2, they're pretty obvious. Yeah, there's 2 above them, 2 cities above them. Let me know which of those are, but they're pretty obvious. One's in India, one's in Japan. I think you'll know which ones they are, but comment. But yeah, this is taking place at the Shanghai Indoor stadium. It says here it got a 13,000 capacity, but by the photos, it looks like it's more, way more than that. And we've only been to Shanghai once, which was Michael Bisping versus Calvin Gastelum. And this is the 7th event in China. Last time we were there was in Macau last year. So they're trying to go there pretty much almost each year to China because, yeah, huge market. We got Zhang Wei Li, the champ from there in the women's strawweight division. Some notable people from Shanghai is obviously Yao Ming, 7 feet 6 tall basketball player who originally played for the Shanghai Sharks before he went to the NBA in the Houston Rockets. And what's interesting, Zhang saw a little snippet on socials. He was saying that people mistaken him for Yao Ming because he has like the same head shape, same facial features. This was him saying he gets mistaken for Yao Ming. Because like if you look at Ming Yang Zhang, very much has the same sort of head structure as Yao Ming. And yeah, it's like the Shanghai GDP is the 9th highest in the world. It was like 750 billion. The GDP of just Shanghai, 9th biggest GDP, city in the world. So to compare that GDP to Australia, the state of New South Wales GDP is 820 billion. So like 100 billion more or so, give or take, than just the city alone of Shanghai. So like the state of New South Wales, so the capital city of that is Sydney. And Sydney is like top 40 or just outside the top 30 as far as GDPs in the world for a city. So like, yeah, again, there's 1.4 billion people in China, but yeah, Shanghai, it's a real big hub, economic hub, and that's why the UFC are continually trying to, get a piece of that marketplace. Because like very much, traditional martial arts sort of country, a lot of ancient history, and so yeah, this is where this fight's taking place. So there's a bit of background of Shanghai a little bit as far as the setting, but let's move on to, this is the fight I'm looking forward to most, who I think should be the main event, and where these styles, I'm very interested to see how this plays out between Aljamain Sterling and Brian Ortega. Sterling, in some interviews, he's been saying like they're all pretty cordial with each other. They've like drilled a little bit with each other. You could not sort of acquaintances, no beef or anything. And this both, like, as we know, Brian Ortega, T-City, Triangle City, has insane jiu-jitsu. And that's kind of saved him from a lot of his fights, from him getting finished and knocked out, is his nasty guard. If you're in his guard, he's throwing up arm bars, triangles from his back. And it's going to be interesting to see if this fight takes place on the ground. That's the biggest question I have, is where will this fight play out? What do you think? Will it play out on the feet, which is where Brian Ortega has the advantage with the boxing, and he has some good body kicks, Brian Ortega, or will this play out on the ground? Will Sterling be able to get his infamous backpack, taking the back position? And I'm leaning towards, I think it will play out on the ground because, it was questionable about Brian Ortega's takedown defense. And watching, if Aljamain Sterling can take down such a dominant grappler in Movsar Evliov, which, I'm rewatching it, I think Sterling, it came down to that last round, and for 75% of it, Sterling had the dominant positions. and you could say he arguably won that fight against Mozart, and he out-grappled Mozart a lot of the time. And if he could take down Mozart, he could definitely take down Brian Ortega. So it's just, if Sterling is like, can Sterling submit Ortega? I don't think so. I think fight over 5 rounds, it's going to be a bit of a back and forth fight, I think, in those positions, and he will never be able to get settled on Ortega's back, and he's not going to want to stay in his guard. So this is what I find really interesting, and want to spend most of the time previewing, is this fight, because just the unknowing and the stylistic matchups. So let's start with Ortega. It's been 11 months since his last fight, which was against Diego Lopez. I mean, he almost gets finished in the first minute and a half of the fight, but his guard, once he goes to his back, saved him. No one wants any business to be in his guard, because he was rocked. It's almost he's too tough for his own good. You saw Volkanovski just got rocked so much. He had Volk in that guillotine at one point and triangle, and he's like kind of half out, and he's still able to, get these submissions in and almost finish people, and it saves him from getting fully finished. And it's almost like long term, you almost just want him to get out of there and just lose to like save his health, because he's just staying in the fight, which is great, but it's also a detriment to your health. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. It's like, gets rocked real easy, but then he saves himself with that insane guard he has. Ortega takes more shots than he lands. Too tough for his own good. Never been submitted, Ortega. So he's never been submitted, and the path to victory for Aljo would be a submission. I don't think he'll be able to knock out. If Diego Lopez, Volk haven't been able to knock him out, I don't think Aljo's going to knock him out. And so this fight very much could go the distance. And where it couldn't go the distance would be like a TKO injury, which has happened to Ortega a few times, like himself against Yair the first time, and then even before, in the Yair second fight, he's getting announced and he's jumping up and down and rolls his ankle. So I wonder how Ortega's body is coming into this fight, if it's going to be, if he's going to get an injury, if his shoulder's going to pop out, or whatever. So that's the durability comes in. He's got a durable chin, but as far as everything else, it's kind of held him back a bit. So he pulls guard really well. He pulls hot chicks. Can he pull off a win? I don't think so. I think Aljo will win this fight. I think it's going to be great exchanges. Where Ortega can win this is on the feet and knocking out Aljo, because Aljo can be finished. Sean O'Malley finished, or TKO'd him. Bit of a dispute and about the stoppage with Sterling O'Malley, because Sterling was, still there. He just got the spam and optics of someone just spam you, even though you're still there, the ref will just stop it. So Ortega definitely can finish Sterling. I just think Sterling, if Calvin Kattar couldn't finish Sterling, who has great boxing, and Sterling just absolutely, didn't give him any space, I think Sterling will be all right in the striking department here. But I'll just see if there's anything more to touch on Ortega. But let me know your thoughts on this bout, where you think it will take place. But yeah, Ortega, 16-4. Like, he's been around for a long time. He's 8-4 in the UFC. Like, one of the greatest title fights of all time is between him and Volk. He obviously loses via decision. I mean, you could have called off the fight when he was after like round 3 or 4 it was, when he literally got picked up, which you're not allowed to do, onto the store by his coach. But yeah, like his last win was against Yair Rodriguez, where almost gets he gets rocked in that fight. Yair kind of comes after him, gasses out a bit, and then he gets that arm triangle choke in the third round over Yair. And then again, Diego gets rocked in the first round and then goes on to lose via decision. So he's had one win in the past, like, was it 2020? So his last win was last year, but before that was during COVID in 2020 against the Korean Zombie, who's now retired. So yeah, he's been pretty inconsistent. So like since 2018, he lost to Holloway, then he won Korean Zombie, then he went 2 fight losing streak, and then he won and then lost again. So yeah, because before that Holloway fight, he was undefeated 14-0. So he came in, he was on a hot win streak in the UFC. He was on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fight win streak before his first loss against Holloway, which was for a title. So yeah, let's go on to Aljo. Let's look at the landscape of Aljo. Former bantamweight champ, will go down as one of the greatest bantamweight champs. Defended the belt 3 times. Controversial win when the Peter Yan illegal knee happened. People were saying he was pulling an Oscar and faking it, but I don't know. You can't fake getting neck surgery. So, and that's been, I like Aljo very much, and he's had a tough run. He's been pretty unfortunate with the fans, like just obviously because of his style. It's the more grappling and doesn't do enough ground and pound like Khabib to make it entertaining. But from a skills perspective, it's super impressive. And then that rematch with Peter Yan, it was a split decision win for him. I honestly thought Peter Yan won that, but it is what it is. Gets the win over TJ for his second title defense. He beats Triple C Henry Cejudo, split decision, and then he lost it to Sean O'Malley. And yeah, the UFC, I don't think the UFC likes Aljo. He says it because in that Inside the UFC or whatever show they released, I think it was last year or the year before, you got to see the behind the scenes. And it was during this time when Aljo was champ. So he beats Henry Cejudo in 2023, May 6. He fights O'Malley in the same year in August, 3 months later. And during the negotiations, his body was battered and bruised. I think his shoulder was cooked. And Hunter Campbell, he pretty much got gaslit into this fight with Sean O'Malley because they needed someone for that. Where did it take place? I think it was Brooklyn. Boston. Took place in Boston. And they needed, and Sean O'Malley was on the rise, and they were thinking, oh, maybe this is going to be our next Conor McGregor. Let's just get him to the title now. And Aljamain was sort of really, he just wanted some rest. He just fought Henry Cejudo. He's got lingering injuries he needed to address, but he kind of got gaslit into a title fight, saying, oh, look at the numbers, and this is a huge opportunity for you. Don't let this pass with the name of Sean O'Malley and what it's going to do for your career, and we'll look after you. Go and watch Inside the UFC. And they were saying oh, fighters are I'm trying to remember the word. It's gone away from me. But yeah, so he lost to Sean O'Malley with that round 2 strikes to the ground. He protested a bit, still kind of there, but I don't know, is what it is. Better early than late. And then he moves up to featherweight April last year at UFC 300 against Calvin Kattar, who is on, I think, a 7-8 fight losing streak now. But he dominates Calvin Kattar to a decision. When I say dominate, just he barely got hit himself. He was all over him because he was a smaller guy coming up, and he, very much proved himself. And then he gets that fight with Movzar, who's the number 1 or 2 contender in the featherweight division. 3-round insane grappling exchanges, like American wrestling versus Russian wrestling, very high level stuff. And if he had won it, there's no argument. Like, I think he did. I think he got that 3rd round just because Movzar finished in a better position. But yeah, now he gets Brian Ortega in a 5-round co-main event. And in interviews this week, he was saying we're not even getting extra money if it were a 3-round fight. And these guys share the same manager. Ortega and Sterling share the same manager. And if you're the manager, what's going on here? Someone map it out for me. What's this manager doing? Because obviously if he gets more money for both fighters to do a 5-round fight, should be compensated. He obviously gets a cut on both ends. So there's a obvious incentive to get your fighters compensated because you're going to get more compensated out of your management fees. And this just shows you the dark side a bit of the fight game, the UFC, MMA, boxing, whatever. When it comes to this sort of stuff, managers working with the promoter, working with the fighters, and then you're representing both fighters. And I was just trying to make sense of how this happens because Dan Hooker, about a month ago, said the same thing. Like, they wanted him to do 3 rounds and then they bumped it to 5 rounds. I forget who it was with to fight. I think it was Gagey maybe. I forget, but he was just saying like they were going to make it 5 rounds and still make it the same purse as a 3-round fight. And it's like, why would you work almost double and not get compensated for obviously if you get a first round knockout, it's like, oh, you didn't do 5 rounds, but it's the training, it's all that training to do a 5-round fight comes to it, and that wear and tear to get fit for a 5-round fighting game plan and all that stuff comes into play for your fight camp, and you should be compensated to do all that work for the potential to go 5 rounds fights. Because as you see, after those 3 rounds, you're going round 4 and 5, you're just taking sort of years off your life. Well, not years, but like you're doing damage to your body. It's a fist fight. They're putting damage on someone, taking their health away with every punch, kick, takedown, squeezing someone's neck off, foot off, arm off. And you should absolutely be compensated. And to make sense of this, you can think of all scenarios, what ifs, and I'm not too well versed in the manager-promoter fighter relationship in this game, but if he's managing these 2 fighters, he's obviously managing other fighters, and conspiracy, whatever. I'm just wondering if the manager's gone to the UFC like, all right, I'm not gonna force my hand and try and get these guys compensated for the 5-round fight, and if you do that for me, UFC, and he has this other fighter on his roster that he wants to get a fight or whatever, the UFC will do that manager a favor for that other fighter and get him a favorable matchup or something if he, cuts off the negotiations for the extra 2 rounds to be compensated for. That's the first theory I thought of, is like, he's using this to get a favor for another fighter, and like he's just keeping them in the dark. And I don't know. Let me know what you think about this situation with the manager and the UFC and not negotiate. Obviously, like, he's incentivized to get these guys compensated, but then it's like, what have you done for me lately kind of thing? And if it's, this manager's got another fighter who he wants to get a fight, and long term, this could be more money for him to get this guy a fight instead of just getting, I think it's only an extra 10, 20K. Some was saying, I think Dan Hooker was saying for the 5 rounds, and it's just bullshit. 100% agree, but yeah, let me know on that. I think I'm probably wrong with my take there. I don't know I don't know the ins and outs and the situation of this relationship with the manager and who manages him, but I'm just putting up theories to make sense of why, 10 minutes of extra fighting, a lot can happen in 10 seconds, let alone 5 seconds. We just saw that with Prates, knocked out Jeff Neal with a spinning elbow with 1 second to go. So now we're talking about 10 minutes? God damn. Yeah, it's just ridiculous, to be honest. And it's frustrating as a fan because you want to see these fighters get paid, looked after, and compensated for putting their lives along the line purely for our entertainment. So, yeah, little rant on that, but let me know your thoughts around that 5 round situation, not getting compensated, not even a title shot guaranteed because Ryan Murphy is going to be probably getting that title shot against Volk. So what's the point of this doing 5 rounds? I think Aljo was saying he thought they were potentially going to be the main events. Wasn't confirmed at the time, and it's like, oh, well, you agreed to the contract, but it's kind of like, well, if you think you're going to be main event, or these guys need to get paid. This is their job. And if they don't say yes to this fight, Aljo, his last fight was against Moza December of last year. So it's been 9 months since he's fought of no fight. Like, this is his main income. He needs to fight, and this is where it gets a little bit of a power trip between promotions and fighters, of just when you've got such a monopoly on the market and with what the UFC has. People showing up for 5 and 5, 10 and 10, as you've seen with the Dana White Contender Series. Like, it's hard to say no when that's the only opportunity you're going to get is the UFC. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts about that. You can go all day about these things, but yeah, I got Sterling in this fight. Man, I think it's going to be a decision. Where I do see a finish is if Ortega does get injured, but I think we're going to see a 3-2 win for Sterling. Okay, now for the rest of the card, it's a lot of road to UFC guys, a lot of, sort of local guys or whatever, and I'm going to be honest, like, I try and do this for the people. As I previously said, don't waste your time on matchups that not necessarily matter, but they have a obligation to me with ESPN or whatever to put fights on. So not all fights I'll watch, but I won't spend time because it's breaking down and getting all the backstories behind them. But next, which is going to be a fun fight, is Sergey Pavlovich versus Waldo Cortez Acosta heavyweight bout. Cortez Acosta's been on a great rise in the UFC, dynamic heavyweight. He's 7-1 in the UFC, and he's on a 5-fight win streak. His last win's coming from Sergey Spivak, which was, I think Sergey should have won that. He won by a unanimous decision, but honestly, I think Sergey Spivak won that. So, yeah, and that was back in June, so pretty quick turnaround for Waldo Acosta, so good on him. But yeah, as with the heavyweights, so there was a period where it had been like 3 months since a finish in the heavyweight division, and he was the last one to get it in March over Ryan Spann. And then there was like a 3-month hiatus of heavyweight finishes. So this is why it's going to be exciting, because Sergey Pavlovich, the Russian heavy hitter puncher, is going to make this. I hope he doesn't get grappled or whatever. I hope this is just a stand and bang sort of fight. He's coming off that win against Jairzinho Rosenstrike 3-round decision win of February early this year. But he was on a 2-fight losing streak. So he lost against Aspinall for the heavyweight interim title. And then he lost to Alexander Volkov, where Volkov just finally did what a tall person does and just jabs the shit out of him, uses that range. Got Pavlovich very frustrated. So, because I thought Pavlovich was going to beat Tom Aspinall, but then he got, finished. But I got Pavlovich winning this fight. Let's have a look at the odds. Like, he's paying $1.45. Cortez Acosta $2.75, but Cortez Acosta, like, he's been winning. So I definitely can't fully count him out in this, but I got Sergey winning this. Let's go, like, it's been a lot of decisions. So I'm going to go, let's go knockout Sergey. Like, let's see if Cortez has been knocked out in his career. Yeah, so, Waldo, he's never been knocked out. He's never been finished. Waldo, or, fucking always getting confused. Cortez Acosta, like, he's never been finished in his career. So very much could be a decision here, but, we don't play it safe here. We're going knockout, Sergey knockout. And then, sort of the other main cards, we just got some flyweight matchups, Sumajari versus Kevin Borges. So I think we're going to see just a lot of 3-round scraps on this card. We might get some holy shit moments, maybe, but a lot of these guys have had 1 or 2 fights in the UFC, but I'm sort of catering to people who don't have a lot of time, but also like the sport. But it's like, I'm here to let you know which fights to pay attention to, which are really good. And, let me know which fights I haven't and why I should pay attention to and break down. But I just focus on the ones, there's over 500 fighters on the roster, and I'm just not going to do rinse and repeat breakdowns like, I think he'll win this fight decision jab. Like, there's plenty of other YouTube pages out there that do every single fight, but so go watch that. But I just try and do a little bit of, keep it a little bit different, but also like, cater to the casuals a little bit here. Now, this prelim bout, I thought it should be on the main card, is what I'm really looking forward to. Lonier Cabanagh versus Charles Johnson in the flyweight division. Charles Johnson is a number 15 ranked flyweight, and I'm very much looking forward to this fight. It's pretty much vet versus prodigy. Lonier Cabanagh from England. Came from the Contender Series, and then he's gone, and so he's 2-0 in the UFC. Lonier Cabanagh. He's very young. Well, he's 26, but like, still young, still super young, because Charles Johnson's 34, almost 35 years old. But Lonier Cabanagh, he last fought here in China in the Macau card. But 2-0 in the UFC. He beat Felipe dos Santos via decision. Very well-rounded Cabanagh, athletic, and it's going to be a great fight. Like, is this too big of a step up for him? Because Charles Johnson, like, he beat Joshua Van, finished Joshua Van, and now Joshua Van's getting a title shot with Pantoja. Like, Charles Johnson, I've been on the Charles Johnson train for a few years now. I think last 2024, he was the most profitable fighter in the betting department, like, because he was just always an underdog, like a 3-1 underdog in a lot of his fights, and he won a lot, and he was winning, and it was just, a lot of people counting him out because he had a bit of a rough patch, but he found his groove. He's got great cardio, great volume and output. Charles Johnson's last fight against Temirov, who has now popped for a banned substance. And in that fight, he landed more, but he didn't have the more impactful shots. And, it didn't look out of place in there. Like, Temirov, very explosive. But he just kept getting unfavorable matchups. Like, because of his age, I just think UFC are just using him to push the prodigies and the younger guys. But as he did with Joshua Van, he finished him. Because, yeah, I'm a big fan of Charles Johnson. He's very crafty. He's got great wrestling, great takedown defense, very underrated. He's 6-5 in the UFC, but he was on a 4 fight win streak before that loss to Ramzan Tamarov. Just a bit unlucky with the scorecards and the way that fight went. Because Tamarov was just throwing explosive shots, but nothing really landing. But only a few landed, but the judges were just like, all right, more damage. And that's when you wonder, like, oh, are they just trying to give it to him because he's the next push? Because, yeah, Johnson, he was coming off a 3 fight losing streak, but they were just via decisions, just shitty decisions, just not doing enough. And then I think he just really flipped this switch and he went on that tear. He beat Azat Maxim, Jake Hadley, finishes Joshua Van, and then finishes Sume Dejari, butchered that, beats him. So yeah, goes on that 4 fight winning streak, and then you'd think he'd get more of a ranked opponent to climb the ranks, and then he gets newcomer Ramazan Tamarov, just this explosive guy. I think he's from Uzbekistan, and loses just a rough decision. And now Tamarov is popped for a banned substance, so it's kind of like, was he versing someone who was cheating? So super, yeah. Because yeah, I'm a big fan of Charles Johnson. Made me a lot of money. Yeah, but has had very unfavorable matchups, and he's getting another newcomer on the rise, prodigy in that division. He's not really been able to get any shot at the other top 10 flyweights. So if he wins this, surely he gets a shot. But he's the underdog again in this fight. So $2.65. I like Kavanaugh because he's definitely can and probably will be a future champ in the flyweight division. But I think I might have to go with my boy Charles Johnson again. $2.65. Could very much win this via decision 29-28. I wonder if he's going to try and wrestle a little bit in this fight. I think he should gas out Kavanaugh a bit. But that prelim fight is very much one to pay attention to. And because, yeah, Johnson has great knees up the middle, great kicks up the middle. He's great with his lateral movement. And you could very much stun Kavanaugh with that. But Kavanaugh, athletic. I think his mum's from Hong Kong, China. So that's why he gets on these China cards. Because he's actually like half Hong Kong or Chinese. Even though he's from England. He's from England. But yeah, is this too big of a step up for him? I think I'm leaning on the side of yes. I think Charles is heavily underrated, but I just know Kavanaugh, though, also is a very smart. He's been doing this since a little kid. Because yeah, he's 9 years younger. More explosive, but I'm just wondering if his gas tank's going to be able to hold up with the pace Charles Johnson pushes. And because yeah, I like both guys. I want both guys to win. They're both great fighters. So it's a tough one for me, but I always go where the value is. Sometimes it doesn't pay off, like with DDP, paying $3. And when you get 50-50 with it, I just go where the values with Johnson. So I'm going Johnson with this, but if Kavanaugh wins, I'm also very happy for him. But yeah. And then another fight. This will probably be the last one I'll get into. Is what I think we'll guess bonuses now. What I think will be fight of the night, which will be Rong Zhu versus Austin Hubbard. And this is how MMA is and how we always just move forward and forget about the past a little bit. We have short-term memories, but Rong Zhu was on that UFC Sydney card earlier this year, DDP versus Strickland. And his fight with Cody Steele got fight of the night. Absolute banger. In contention for fight of the year. Everyone's forgotten about it. Because you had Bilal Muhammad versus JDM, Joshua Van. versus Brendan Royval. They're like, oh, that's fight of the year, that's fight of the year. But then we get another fight, we're like, oh, that's fight of the year. But people have forgotten about Rong Zhu in the fight he had earlier this year. Just an absolute banger. So tune in definitely for this prelim fight of Rong Zhu versus Austin Hubbard. I think we're going to definitely get a fight of the night here. Both guys just love to throw. You know, they don't care if they get hit. So this is going to be my fight of the night and and a prelim fight that you should tune in for. We got Michael Pereira. Man, this guy's been on a bit of a downfall versus Kyle Dorcas, who is back in the UFC. He got cut, went on the regional scene, and he's been called up back into the middleweight division to step in and fight Michel Pereira. Michel Pereira, man, his last fight was super weird. We got a split personality fight here. Went from extravaganza, backflips into guard Michel Pereira into the bloke was stuck in concrete. His ankles were in concrete, moving around, doing nothing. And probably one of the most boring fights of the year. Yeah, if not the most boring or second most boring fight of the year against Abus Magomedov. I mean, as far as fighting concerns, easiest paycheck. Didn't get hit at all. Didn't throw anything really. I'm just wondering if he was injured. You don't know what's going on. I mean, he danced in the walkout. People saying he gassed himself at the dance. But back-to-back losses, Michel Pereira. You know, that Anthony Hernandez round 5 brutal beating he got against Fluffy Hernandez, as we've seen, like what he did to Roman Dolidze, he did that to Pereira as well. So I wonder if that changed him a little bit, but his last fight was April this year. Very disappointing. I don't know what we're going to get now with Pereira, if he's going to come out doing cartwheels, backflips, or anything. But yeah, I want to keep an eye on Kyle Dorcas. Welcome back to the UFC to get in that card on China. But yeah, those are the fights I'll leave at that. Because yeah, a lot of the other ones are just kind of newcomers, and you know, you got to show me something if you want me to spend time breaking down your fights, you know. Because yeah, there's a lot of fighters to break down, and so I just focus on the ones I find interest. But you know, if someone comes out with a great performance and goes, "Hey, Gibbo, you should be spending time on me," we'll prove it. Okay. So bonuses, who I'm guessing for the bonus for this fight, Rong Zhu versus Hubbard for fight of the night, and then performances of the fight. I think Mingjing Zhang will get a performance of the night. I think he'll just starch Johnny Walker end of the first round, easy bonus. And I think Sergey Pavlovich, I think he will starch Waldo, finish him for the first time in his career, and get a bonus. But yeah, in other news, to kind of the back end of this preview, let's do a rankings update. We had a big shift in the pound for pounds rankings. So Hamza catapults, I think he was in the 10th ranked in the P for P rankings. He's now 4th. He's now ranked 4th, Hamza, and DDP has shot down 7 spots to 11th. Wow. So Hamza is now a top 4 fighter, pound for pound rankings, very much makes sense, undefeated. You know, if he gets another win, you know, because you got Ilya, Islam, Merab, Hamza, and he bumped off Pantoja down to 5. So yeah, that's a very good looking pound for pound rankings list right there. If you compare it to other eras in the sport. Is this one of the most stacked pound for pound rankings in UFC history? Like you got Jack Della Maddalena there in 8th. You got Alex Pereira at 10, Max Holloway 12, Volkanovski at 6, Shavkat at 15. I mean, Armin's there, but he's not even a champion. So yeah, I'd say it's up there with one of the most dominant pound for pound rankings of all time, for sure. Some movement in the featherweight division. Lauren Murphy goes up to rank number 4 after that insane spinning elbow knockout, which will probably get knockout of the month August. He's already locked in as a nominee and potentially of the year. But Year's not over. Paddy Pimblett somehow moved up 2 spots to rank 7. I don't know how that is. Carlos Prates back in the top 10 in the welterweight rankings. Moves up 3 spots to number 9. Yeah, a lot of movement in the middleweight. Sort of just because Hamzat becoming champ, so everyone kind of bumped down. Fluffy now number 6 after that win. And yeah, that's about it. Lupi Goodenez bumps up 5 spots to rank 6 in the strawweight division. But yeah, there's a ranking update. Some fight announcements. UFC Vancouver main event has been announced. Reiner Dorita versus Fluffy Hernandez. And everyone thought Reiner Dorita was going to get that short turnaround with Hamzat. Was going to fight Hamzat in Abu Dhabi, but that's not taken place. Because yeah, they were both going back and forth on X, tweeting at each other, and we're like, oh, here we go. And then boom, RDR versus Fluffy. Potentially, they needed a main event, and Fluffy has coming off a great win himself. So that's happening in October. So pretty quick turnaround, and this will be RDR's like 4th fight of the year. So as far as who's winning that, we'll get down to it when the preview comes about, but it's tough. I was leaning towards RDR, but then I'm like, look at what Fluffy's been doing. So I think we're going to get an absolute banger in that fight. UFC Brazil had some that got released. October's like pretty stacked right now. Like you got Ankalaev Pereira 2, Oliveira Fiziev, October 12th in Rio, and then you got Dorita Hernandez, October 19th, Aspinall Gun, October 26th. So like October's is looking stacked. It's gonna be a busy month, October, doing a lot of breakdowns and previews and reviews, a lot of matchups, great matchups. So stay tuned for October for sure, because yeah, that's gonna be a banger month. Holy shit. But after this fight night, we have a week off. Because the next fight night will be in Paris, Imavov versus Borjalio, probably for a title eliminator, which I assume will then fight Hamzat next year. But yeah, and the aftermath of Hamzat's win has been pretty, back and forth with, it was a boring fight, and people coming out and speaking, and a lot of fighters saying like, you're a casual if you thought that was boring, and like if you think that was exciting, like fucking, what are you doing? Because yeah, like DDP's coach had a instant, next morning interview with Submission Radio, which was really good to get his insight into it. Heard some good things, heard some sort of not so, starting with the ref. The ref should have intervened more, but oh well. But I'd like to hear that they're now like got this huge mountain they want to climb, and they're not going to settle until they do, because he doesn't want to fight DDP to fight anyone else. He doesn't want to then go fight another contender, spend 12 weeks training for that person. Meanwhile, the champ who he just got dominated by, he needs to go and address those issues, get shorten that skill gap in which he got dominated in the wrestling and grappling. And he wants to now spend the time now getting DDP up to speed, spending the time learning that side of his game to then rematch Hamzat next year. Because we'd like to see the rematch for sure, not immediately, but he wants to now DDP's coach was sort of saying, spend that time to develop that side of the game, so that way when the rematch happens, we're not going to see that same fight. He doesn't want to then go not waste, but it takes a lot of time. I mean, I wouldn't know, but just from the way he was saying, like, it takes a lot of time to get those things right. Like, you just can't, like, from a striking perspective, you can't just come in and learn boxing for 8 weeks and then go, oh yeah, I'm going to now compete with Canelo Alvarez. So, and that's what we kind of saw here. Like, yeah, he had the basics, defended well from the submissions, but that next level, he got taken down 12 times. So it's going to take a lot of time for DDP to get the training in to develop that skill and close the gap. Because I was saying get Craig Jones in there to at least somehow get up off the ground, because you're going to get taken down. But as you saw with Volk, he kind of got taken down, but he was immediately didn't accept the positions, because a lot of the time DDP was accepting positions. And with Craig Jones' Mexican ground game karate, the philosophy is, to be able to get back up straight away. But yeah, another thing, boxing matchmaking. Here in Australia, we do our pay-per-views on a Wednesday night, just because, it's hard to compete with everyone around the world, but also the footy we have here, AFL, NRL, that take up the weekends where everyone is. So we do the Wednesday night midweek pay-per-views, and Costa Zhu's son, Tim Zhu's little brother, Nikita Zhu, was fighting. And so a pay-per-view here is $60 still. And this fight matchmaking, like, I didn't even watch it because, we got $1.05, $1.04, $1.30. So all the favorites won easily with the main event and co-main, instant round one knockouts, nothing competitive. And it just went exactly how I said it would. Just not egregious, almost unsafe matchmaking when you're getting these, because they're all padded records in boxing. And you got like, oh, this guy who's first thing's 12-0 flying from Germany, and it's like 12-0 what fucking at the PCYC? Like, and it almost becomes unsafe, the boxing matchmaking. And yeah, it's funny seeing the result posts and everyone commenting like, oh, what a waste of money, or he's fighting plumbers, taxi drivers. And yeah, like, why are you not surprised? Like, it's funny how like people continuously get surprised by this, but yeah, it's really becoming like the gimmick's over. Boxing, the circus is over. They're becoming gimmick belts. Like, it's over. Stop trying to. It's real snake sales, like snake sale, oily fucking, yeah, snake oil salesman esque in a sense. And people like with UFC and MMA, it's okay to lose, obviously, because you're dealing with so many variables in mixed martial arts, striking, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and boxing is just one dimensional with the punches. So it's like, oh, they just think, if you lose, oh, it's the end of the world. But I think with the way Turkey's obviously he's got money to put on these cards, but fans are like, we're forgiving. Fans are forgiving. Like, if you just put on great fights and you lose, like, okay, sweet, but like, we'll pay attention to you still, even if you lose. But boxing seems to have this thing where it's like, oh, if you lose, that's it, you're done, end of the world, never going to watch you again. But having come, a lot more people are watching more MMA than they are boxing. We're forgiving. It's okay to lose, and that's why you get cool fights. And the fact that people paid $60 for this, and I put up a post like, you could buy Khabib McGregor for the exact same price. The pay-per-view we just had, DDP versus Hamza, you could buy that for the exact same price. So you got to pay the same price for this card where, they're professional fighters, but like, compare that to the UFC, they would be on like the early prelims, like the level of these fighters. But you got to pay $60 to watch them, and I didn't watch it. All I had to do was just go on Instagram to see the fight results. So yeah, boxing is in a weird, because this isn't just Australia, happens all around the world in this sport. And like, I went to the Jai Opetaia fight, which was good matchmaking, actually. I mean, Opetaia, who's the Ring Magazine and IBF Cruiserweight World Champion, he was a heavy favorite, but the only reason they had to like fly an opponent in for him, because the champ, Ramirez or something, WBC, don't want to fight him. So it's like, well, we still got to fight and make money. Like, that's when I do give a bit of relief to the promoter and the matchmaking is like, well, we've got to fight someone, so, and you know, sometimes you get these matchups, but this was just clear pushing. These are the fighters we're promoting. We're just going to give him easy matchups. And, you know, they're trying to sell you a Ferrari, but delivering a Honda Civic. That's what boxing really is now, is, oh, here's this awesome Rolls-Royce Lamborghini. Come and watch and buy it, get a drive. And, you know, that's what they're promoting. But they're offering up fucking Nissan Pulsars. Seriously, like, you're not going to survive in the fight game. Like, the fans see straight through it. And let me know your thoughts on that. Let me know your thoughts on the boxing matchmaking system. Like on the regional scene in MMA, the matchmaking's great. You get awesome fights on the regional scene in MMA because I go to them and they're great fights. You don't get any huge, you know, 10-1 underdogs in there. You get really good even fights, and so it's just like, yeah, boxing is just a dying sport when it comes to that. They're their own worst enemies. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. So the fight's here Saturday night in Australia, which is awesome. We only get that like once or twice a year. But yeah, be sure to I'll drop the review after the fights on YouTube. But yeah, be sure to comment your predictions, thoughts on this fight. Appreciate the support. We'll be dropping on Spotify as well. But yeah, man, yeah, enjoy the fights, and I'll see you in the review. Have a good day.